A very warm evening to you, wherever you're watching us live on the JoyNews channel. This is the JoyNews Catholic Relief Services National Dialogue on Sustaining Peace Beyond Election 2024. We're looking at the role of the Ghanaian citizens, and this is also in collaboration with the National Peace Council. The dialogue is brought to you with funding support from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Prevention of Violent Extremism through Social Accountability Project, POVETSA 2. For those of you who are wondering, my name is Blessed Sogai, and of course, we're live on Joy 99.7 FM. We're on myjoyonline.com and around the world, also on YouTube. For those of you who are watching us on the Joy News live channel on YouTube, follow all of our social media handles and don't forget to also join in the conversation, because we're making this very interactive to all of you who want to join the conversation through social media. So your comments and questions are also welcome. You can do that through the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH. That's what we're trending with today. And we all know that today, and for those of you who are not aware, today is the International Day for Peace. And here on your most credible, authoritative, independent and fearless home of journalism, we are once more bringing the best together to engage on the most critical issue concerning all of us. And before, during and after the December polls, all we want is sustaining the peace of the country. Welcome. The Catholic Relief Services has been implementing the Prevention of Violent Extremism through Social Accountability Project, POVETSA. With funding from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Catholic Relief Services POVETSA project has been operating in partnership with the National Peace Council to implement the initiative, which aims at enhancing trust between civilians and security services to prevent violent extremism in Ghana.
So I think the people are now understand what they should have peace and help the community. I thank the CRS because they have done a very nice job for the Adaboya community. Because when there is peace, you can do anything in the community.
With less than 100 days to Ghana's presidential and parliamentary elections, the project is working with national peace actors to ensure that Ghana retains its glory as the beacon of democracy in Africa. Thanks for staying with us here on the Joy News channel. We're also live on Joy 99.7 FM. Join us with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH. That is the hashtag for those of you who would want to be a part of this nationwide or national dialogue that we are having today. Just join us with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH, and you'll be free to interact with my panel for tonight. Quite a wide array of expertise that we have tonight, and I'll be telling you about them shortly. But I also need to tell you about the POVETSA 2, which has been very impactful, just as you've seen on your screens there, with phase 2 of the project underway in a number of communities across the country, with support from of funding coming through from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it is being implemented by the Catholic Relief Services, and we're grateful for that partnership, which is making us possible to bring you this conversation that we're having on Joy News tonight, which is the National Dialogue on Peace before, during and after the 2024 general elections. What would you want to see? Which questions would you want to ask? We'll get into it shortly, but let me welcome my guests who are doing this tonight. And I told you earlier that we're doing this in partnership with the National Peace Council. So we're fortunate to have the Executive Secretary for the National Peace Council, Mr. George Amo, who's joining us tonight. And it's good to see you again after a very busy week. You've been all over the country trying to push peace across the country. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Blair.
And we also have Kathleen Addy, who's the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education. It's good to see you again after a long while. And we have Professor Kwesi Enin. He's like a friend to the house. And so very often you'd find him on our screens, a security and risk consultant joining us on this dialogue. And we're grateful always to host you here on JoyNews. Also joining us is the West African Network for Peace Building, a very, very crucial institution in that fight. Joining us is Dr. Festus Obing, who's the regional coordinator for research at the West African Network for Peace Building. Doc, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to have you. So since we're talking about peace before, during and after the elections, there's a need for us to first of all assess what's been happening across the country. As we know, the Catholic Relief Services, they've been doing their part, doing the Povetsa too, and reducing, violent extremism. But with just, less than 90 days to the elections, there's a need for us to assess the national picture. And it's such a good time to be hearing from you, George Amo, because you've been across the country. I've been on some fora with you as well, and I personally know the kind and the extent of work you're doing ahead of the elections. But walk the nation through the journey so far. How has it been? What have you been up to? And what's been the impact so far?
Thank you very much, Blessed, and thanks to our those who are listening to us across the country. Yes, after the 2020 elections, the Peace Council had a national dialogue. And the dialogue was intended to evaluate what happened before and after the 2020 elections, so that we can be informed what to do to make our elections more transparent, more peaceful, more acceptable. So we had that conversation, and were able to bring all the political actors together. We came up with some very important recommendations. And that, we believe, we've been able to implement almost all the charges that were given to the Peace Council to do. So we haven't slept at all. Together with Povetsa 1, which the CRS started together with us. We've been able to go through most of the communities in our country. We have targeted the security, civilian relationships. We've targeted media, we've targeted communities, religious leaders, traditional leaders, all to mobilize support for a peaceful elections this year.
And since you're talking about Povetsa, this is a good time to also shape the partnership and look at how that has been supportive to what you do at the National Peace Council. Would you say that it's been impactful?
I think so. I remember the program we had in Koforidua and in a Pram, together with the security. It was fantastic. Bringing together the top of our security to engage with politicians, with the civil society, with the ordinary, people of our country, I think was very insightful and really brought the much needed interface between security and civilians. Sometimes people, for so many reasons, have some trust deficit. The security, how do we trust them? The politicians will say, we don't trust the police. The police will say, we don't also trust you. So that program opened the space, for them to engage and for us to think through what we can do to build a more resilient society and to diffuse tension between particularly the two, security and citizens, so that we can together have in mind what kind of country we want to have. So I think Professor 1 did excellent. We have begun with Professor 2, and we hope that we are going to do the same, particularly as we approach.
I see that you're a firm believer in the Povetsa project, and that's why you're, of course, drawn in the Choose Peace GH, JoyNews Catholic Relief Services partnership. But you struck a very, great point about, citizens' participation, which is very crucial. And that's why I want to hear from you, Kathleen, the point about the role of the citizen and the role they can play in fostering peace. Very often, we believe that Ghana is a peaceful country, right? But we don't take time to analyze those who have contributed to that. And I'm not sure we can leave out the citizenry, can we?
No, absolutely not. It all boils down to citizenship, because at the end of the day, our individual actions become the collective actions, and that becomes what shapes the outcome of things. So, of course, we can't leave out the citizen. And at NCC, our focus, as you know, is on citizens. NCC is the grassroots organization, highly decentralized in every district. This year, we set out to do public education around 4 broad themes. And the first one being money in politics. Because at the end of the day, we have to understand the context, why things go the way they go, why people end up in a situation that is not peaceful. You know, so we identify 4 broad areas that we've been targeting education all of this year. And the first one is money in politics, and looking at the fact that monetization has become normalized in our political culture. It's a very dangerous trend. It's almost like we are put our democracy out there for sale. If it's all about money, then really, truly, you don't know who you will end up with, who is funding them. And I always say that money doesn't grow on trees, obviously. It comes from someplace, and it's going to go back there with interest. Yeah. And so if we continue to indulge in this culture of giving out money and demanding money, you know, as part of, you know, the electoral process, we are going to find ourselves in dangerous ground. So we are educating both the citizens and the politicians, you know, so that we start to, you know, talk and start thinking about politics without money exchanging hands. The second thematic area we're looking at is disinformation and fake news. Another huge threat, not just to, you know, social cohesion, but to the very stability of the state. Yeah. And the fact that we've seen so much of that already, and we will see more in this last leg of the pre-election season. And we are urging citizens not to be part of the problem by just refusing to forward things that land in your inbox, things that land on your feed that you know is problematic, because most of us can identify those things. And the other thing we're looking at is religious tolerance, which never used to be a problem in our political culture, but now kind of becoming some kind of problem. On that, the NCC is in agreement with all the leaders of the faiths that we will not allow religion to become another point of division, you know, because once you start with politics, it is going to go down, disseminate. So once after the politics, then what? If you say that you are going to vote on religious grounds, after that, are you going to sit with your neighbor from a different faith in peace? Are you going to still enjoy their holidays as we all do? Are we going to accept each other in educational institutions, health institutions? So we don't want it to go that way. So we are focusing on that as well.
And of the 3 points, yes.
No, okay, right, yes. And then the last one, which is related directly to what we are talking about today, is education around violent, intemperate language, use of insults as part of a political campaign. So these are the 4 broad areas that we've been focused on in all our activities, and we've done a lot this year with students, out of school, in-school youth, political party youth activists, different people in communities, a lot of different engagements. We've launched our inter-party dialogue committees, which are these committees in the communities, in districts, that is made up of the political parties represented in that district, as well as traditional rulers, traditional authorities, faith-based institutions, security, and all of that. And the idea there is to try and nip in the bud issues that come up at the local level, because a lot of times we look at politics, we look at the big national politics, but the truth of the matter is that things start at the local level and then percolate and then sort of go and become something bigger that we can't all, you know, contain. So the IPDCs do these engagements that lead to containment of disagreements, political disagreements that come at the local level. So
I was just going to pick on the second point you raised about disinformation and misinformation, but it's a very big issue out there, which possibly, and that's just my personal view, I'll get your take on that, about how that could be the fuel to violent extremism as we head into the elections. I'll take all of your thoughts on that. But for those of you who are still joining us now, This is the Joy News National Dialogue. It's in partnership with the Catholic Relief Services with funding coming through from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Netherlands. I need to point out that we're also live on Joy 99.7 FM, and all you need to do to be a part of the conversation is to join in with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH, and then we'll read out your comments and you have the opportunity of interacting with my guest. Professor Ini is also with us, and Prof, we are very quick to resort to Ghana being the beacon of democracy. I mean, it's become a cliche right now, but that commentary alone, does it have the potential of, attracting some sort of extremism onto the nation? Because when you talk of terrorism, you talk of violent extremism, some people say it's just like a movie. We only watch that in the movies.
I don't think Ghana is under threat from violent extremism from the outside of our boundaries. It is irresponsible governance that is leading to a sense of frustration and then anger. I think both my two colleagues have spoken about peacefulness, citizens' participation. The very slogan, choose peace, presupposes that peace is a common good. Peace is not. There are people who benefit when there is no peace. And if we see the direction in which this country is going, one can conclude that we've made up, people have made decisions that there should be no peace, and that it will inure to their individual and group benefit were there not to be peace. So I think we should disabuse our minds that we are all looking or working towards peace. The second, and I like George's point about bringing all kinds of people together, but it raises fundamental challenges. If you have a place like Cindy, Accra Dollar Power, where elements of criminal enterprises are mining and selling our natural resources, and you tap that into the galamsey, then the notions of peace as just the four of us or the five of us not fighting becomes hollowed. Ghana's peacefulness on the global index has also progressively dropped, so that we are now the fourth most peaceful country in West Africa and the 43rd globally. Our democracy is characterized by the Economic Intelligence Unit, by the Institute for Economic and Peace, as a flawed democracy, meaning that we have been voting over the past 32 years or so that we've had this constitution, and that very little is actually happening. Catherine talks about citizens and participation. That is very key. Because if citizens don't participate, and particularly in an election year, that participation is about deliberate, specific engagement in the debates, in the way we engage, but even more importantly, bringing alternative voices to play a role. She also mentioned misinformation and disinformation. Now, the international, and I want to end by making 2 points. The international community is giving us this false notion that misinformation is a Russian-led and a Chinese-led thing. And I want to tell them point blank, if that is why you are giving us your money, take your money away. Because when our politicians stand on platforms and lie and distort our history, are they telling us that the Russians have told them to do so? No. So we need to be able to disaggregate the types of information and disinformation that we are seeing. Particularly, we take, for example, the deliberate ways in which women's identity are twigged, switched, and ridiculed. Okay? The way particular words are used about female candidates. Our partners telling us those things are the Russians who are telling us. The second is the Povetsa thing, which I think is good, but I think we need to begin to ask critical questions about this universalizing language that the terrorists and the violent extremists are coming. And my own work tells me that if we use an intersubjective approach, this year alone, until now, almost 2,000 Ghanaians have died through road traffic accidents. Now, how many terrorists have killed people here? So were we to flip it and to say, look, Mr. Dutch Ambassador, 2,000 people have died on road traffic accidents in Netherlands. 0 terrorist activity. Would you invest in terrorism or you invest in more secure road traffic behavior? You know, so as Ghanaians, we need to be bold enough, as our national anthem tells us, you know, to be able to ask critical counterfactual questions. Yes, the campaigns are good, but the campaigns must recognize the people on the other side, unwilling and unprepared to listen to the reason that Catherine and George is telling us and the interventions that they are doing. We need to recognize that, yes, they may be doing a good job, but the enemy is also very strong.
So it's more about tailoring, you know, how we see violent extremism towards our own needs and what we have in the country. But since you brought up the issue about what's happening globally, it's a good time to do some comparative analysis as well. That's why we're fortunate to have the West African Network for Peace Building, because Ghana is finding itself in a region which has been very turbulent of late. You've been doing a lot of research at WANEP. So, Dr. Obeng, help us with the sub-regional picture as to how Ghana is faring amongst our sister nations.
Thank you very much. Let me first of all say good evening to your viewers. Yes, I think that when you look at the West African sub-region today, we have a lot of challenges, especially within the Sahel area and also around the Lake Chad, basin area, where you have issues of violent extremism. In the Sahel, you have issues of unconstitutional changes of government and also violent extremism, which is complicating the security situation in those areas. And so when you also come to the coastal areas, you will find out that our neighbors, Benin, Togo, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, have all experienced this issue of violent extremism. And for Burkina Faso, for example, you find out that a sizable portion of the territory is under the control of armed groups. And so when you compare Ghana within the region that we find ourselves, then you are tempted to say that we are doing relatively better in comparison to those countries, despite the challenges that confront us. Right. And I think over the years, some of the factors that have contributed to this positive reputation of Ghana within the region is our successive political transitions since 1992, where we've had power transitioning from incumbent to opposition parties, the role that is being played by civil society organizations, the vibrant media that we have despite the challenges, and also the role that successive governments and institutions like the National Peace Council, the NCC have played in terms of trying to promote social cohesion, peaceful coexistence.
So we're doing well.
Have all contributed to the relative stability that we have. But you see, in this country, when we talk about peace, people think that you have peace when there's absence of violence. But peace goes beyond the absence of violence. The issues that Prof mentions, there are a lot of structural challenges. The governance challenges, the issues of unemployment, the issues of people's, expectation of governance not met, and issues of marginalization, exclusion, which are all indicators of measuring how peaceful a country is. And despite, our relative stability, we also have challenges that we need to look at. as we move forward.
Oh, okay, but let me tell you about the ones that I've identified ever since we started the conversation. And of course, we've heard from Prof, we've heard from Kathleen, and also we've heard from George, all talk about, first of all, inflammatory language on the part of the politicians, and then tying that into misinformation, disinformation, which appears to be the elephant in the room. So just before we get to that, just also help us with some of the thematic areas. I mean, the key points you've identified, that some of the contributory factors to this issue of posing a threat to our peace and stability. What are some of the findings you have at WANEP?
Yes, so from our early warning data, we've been able to identify quite a number of issues that poses a threat, to the elections. And I think throughout the data that we've gathered, one of the major issues is the issue of mistrust of the state's institutions, especially the Electoral Commission and then the security agencies, the police. And this issue has come up very often in most of the data that we've gathered. And this is also due to some of the historical, factors, and also some of the actions and inactions of the Electoral Commission, which has more or less endangered that kind of mistrust from the political, actors within the electoral process. Part of it is the appointment that happened after the 2016 elections. Right. Also, some of the issues around voter register and all that. Then issues of misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, use of vituperative languages has also come up very strongly, especially within the social media. And the role of the media has been quite prevalent in this, and also the role that citizens also play in this whole issue of disinformation and misinformation. Because people get messages, and instead of verifying those messages, they just forward it without knowing the implications of some of the messages they are forwarding in terms of causing social unrest and all that. So
I think this is a fair representation of, both the problem and the solution, because you have the regulators and the authorities that are responsible for dealing with some of these threats that you're identifying. And then we as the media as well ought to play a role. And that's why we're doing what we're doing now. So for those of you who are watching us on the JoyNews channel, and on Joy 99.7 FM, it is the International Peace Day, and what we're doing is to hold a national dialogue. So this is the Joy News National Dialogue in partnership with the Catholic Relief Services, and we're doing this with funding from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And for those of you who would want to be part of this good cause, all we're asking you is to join the conversation on social media, which has become a platform for misinformation, disinformation. We're checking all of that tonight. So just join us with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH. The National Peace Council is here. The National Commission for Civic Education is here. WANEP and Professor Eninga are all helping us with the conversation. And all of these factors we have identified. Let's look at the strategies now to deal with them. And I'll start off with you, George. Just under 80 days to the elections, all of these four factors. Let's start off with the aspect of, for instance, the Peace Pact, mistrust between all of the actors, the police service and the Electoral Commission. These are key institutions that will bind us together if indeed we need to hold our democracy to sail through. So what are you doing on your part as the National Peace Council to tackle that emerging threat?
Again, the Peace Council, our mandate is clear to facilitate and develop mechanisms to prevent, manage, and resolve conflicts. So in pursuit of this mandate, looking at all the issues after the last elections, 2020 elections, the issue of mistrusts, like Dr. Obeng has said, it came up strongly as one of the key threats to our democracy. So what we did to address the trust deficit is to set up what we have termed the political party trust building platform. So that platform is intended to bring all the political parties, registered and key political actors together on quarterly basis, to think through what is it that we can do to improve our political discourse. You know, so that platform has been functioning quite well since last year.
Yeah, for those who are not aware of how the platform is structured, are you able to take us through what you do
thank you very much.
On that platform? Yeah.
Thank you. So we have all the 11 registered political parties represented. And we invite the general secretaries and their chairman. So the first one, for example, brought together, that was when the NDC and NPP have changed leadership. So the first time, Honorable Fifi Kwete and the chairman, Honorable Johnson Asiri Nketia, were present. The NPP brought their chair, Honorable Intim, and the secretary, Justin Kudia from Pong. I think it was the first time probably they met in that, in that positions. Right. And I think it was very good. It was in that forum that I think PNC, I think the woman, Janet, who has now left, had a complaint. And in that forum, it was trashed out. So it is a forum that has been established by the Peace Council to encourage discourse amongst our political actors as one of the mechanisms to, reduce tension between and amongst the political actors. Then we have another one, that we have set up to monitor intolerance in our political space. We have called it a committee. In fact, it's a committee to monitor the code of conduct that the Peace Council developed after the vigilante dialogue. So that platform is also is made up of the political parties themselves, indeed NDC, MPP, and one representation from the smaller parties. Our friends, my brother is part of it, Festus. We have IDEC represented, we have Electoral Commission represented, the police also represented. So what we do is also to monitor the political space and the code, whether or not the politicians are following. We think that it is a forum to help reduce the mistrust, amongst these states and non-state actors who are very relevant for our democracy. So we've done this. Together with OneUp, we've also established what we call the Election Response Group. And that is also intended to pick early warning signs, see what is it that we can do to address them in time, so that we don't get into problems that will lead us into all kinds of things.
And speaking about the early warning,
yes,
you know that one of the key issues has got to do with the voters register. That's been trending in recent times. Are you picking up that signal? What are the differences? How do you intend to resolve them? For instance, using the same platform that you speak of.
Yeah, I think that we have some positive outcome. We have engaged the EC, we've engaged the NDC, and we are hopeful that an agreeable method will be acceptable in the nearest future. I mean, probably today, tomorrow, or the day after. Right. For us to move on, I think we have to do that. So we are working a lot behind the scenes. We intend to come out latest by Monday, looking at the variables. So we think that we are on course. Our leaders, I believe, they have good intentions for our country. What we need to do is also to create the environment for them, to help, shaping our country to the Ghana we all want to have for ourselves and our children. So I think we all have to contribute. I believe the political parties have a huge role to play in making sure we reduce the trust deficit. I believe the Electoral Commission has a huge role to play to make the trust issues addressed. The posture we put up sometimes, if your words do not go with your body language, if there's no that coherence, it will create some doubts in the minds of people. So I think all of us would have to learn lessons after every day and make sure we contribute to making our country the beacon of democracy we have been known for. I think we will get there. We will get there. So gradually, all of us, I think the media, you're also doing quite well. We have to commend you, but also to let you that, you know, there are people who are lacking all over the place. I think Prof made mention of the spillovers from the Sahel. If we are unable to build that kind of resilience against our own internal issues and also the spillovers from the Sahel, we can suffer. And that one, we cannot say Ghanaians are peaceful, so we should know. I think we have to be up and doing.
But we also need to point out that it's not only about the political class, that you have, you know, the citizenry who far outnumber these political parties and their membership. So, Kathleen, let's talk about citizens' participation and how we can have them also support the peace process. In the lead up to the elections, do you have any program, you know, anything lined up just to try and educate the public some more?
Let's talk about our thematic areas for the public education we're undertaking. So that's the first thing. And then it's true, the citizens outnumber the politicians, and they are the drivers of all that is going on. Because when there's going to be violence, it is ordinary people who will be called to the streets to inflict violence on each other. You will, you know, even where you find politicians, they'll be, you know, they'll be directing the violence, right? But it is ordinary people, the ordinary citizens, who in the long run will come to the streets and inflict violence. It is ordinary citizens who are hired as political communicators and foot soldiers who hurl insults at each other and carry out all the, you know, unsavory things that mainstream politicians are unable to do. So yes, the role of the citizen can never be overlooked. I've talked about the programs you're doing, but the most important thing, one of the most important things we do every election year is a survey that we call the Matters of Concern, which is a report that comes out every election year that tracks the hopes and dreams and aspirations of the Ghanaian people and the expectations they have of our political leaders and, you know, the vision they have for the future of our country. And this year, I think the report will be ready in the next week or two. And we will be using it, we'll be disseminating it, of course, with media partners like yourself. Yeah,
you want to give us privileged information.
and so that will be coming out soon. But that's also very important because it forms the basis for the parliamentary debates that we hold every year in every constituency. Because the outcomes, the survey results are, the report is constituency specific. So we are able to tailor the questions to constituencies that will be asking the candidates at the parliamentary encounters.
But how about the national level? Have you had challenges trying to bring all of these political parties together, just at least to afford us the opportunity to know what they are promising, having all of their candidates dialogue at the national level?
At least for us and Peace Council and ONEP, we don't work in isolation. One of the things that has not been mentioned is the level of collaboration and working together that we do. And so it's not so much as we haven't met them, but there are pieces of work being done by people. Everybody's doing a piece of the work. For us as NCC, our focus really and our mandate is really about the people. It's about getting people to be good citizens because good citizens are not, you know, they don't fall from the sky. And a foundation of good citizenship is part of the solution to all this, you know, tension that builds up over the elections. Because if we have really built the citizens to a certain point, there will be no need for this. There will be no need for the threats. You won't have political parties threatening us that if we don't win, then this or that, you know, that kind of thing. So it's all built on good citizenship. And good citizenship is something that you actually have to work at. You have to invest in. You have to be committed to over a long period to have concrete results. So for us, that's our daily work. That's our bread and butter. We are constantly trying to turn ordinary Ghanaians into good citizens because there's a big difference between being a Ghanaian and being a good citizen. So for us, that foundation is important and we don't shift from that. In everything that we do, all of our work is based on the foundation of ensuring that at the end of the day, no matter what it is, if it's peace building, if it is voter education, all of it is grounded in a solid education of building good citizens for Ghana.
One of the institutions Dr. Albin mentioned, and we don't unfortunately have them around the table, is the Ghana Police Service. We must commend them, Prof, for their role in at least helping us safeguard the democracy over the 30-year framework. But into the future, and looking at that in the context of the 2024 general elections, you work in that space. So whilst we look at the police service, what more factors are threatening our peace? But let's start off from the police service. That's where I want us to start off from, Prof.
Well, let me say this. You know, my three colleagues are very diplomatic and they speak in moderated tone. That is not really my style. I think the Ghana Police Service has undergone what I'll call a remarkable institutional transformation in the last 3 years or 3.5 years. That process of turning this huge ship midstream to be responsible and a responsive institution, serving the needs of the Ghanaian people, is an ongoing project and a difficult one at that. For those of us who believe that the Ghana Police Service can and must be supported to deliver on its mission and vision of protecting lives and property, when we speak this way, we've lost all our friends in the police service. But it's not only about Dr. Dampare driving this process. It's about his team of leaders who together get this job done. But in any bureaucratic institutional processes, there are also internal challenges of people who think, but the previous system inured to my personal benefit, and then we could form these groups and do whatever we used to do. Now, that transformation process and restructuring process, we saw, was it in the Asen North by-election, and a couple of the by-elections that have taken place that demonstrated their professionalism. Coming here was a headache. You know, they were all over town with their barriers. So if we look at the reduction in trust of the Ghana Police Service, the Electoral Commission, and the judiciary, the police service has the least, I think just about 22 negative points, while the rest are over 33, 35 negative points. The media itself is characterized as having a problematic landscape. You know, so there's quite a lot of work that we need to do. And Catherine's Matters Arising document I'd really like to see. Sure. But she mentioned religious leaders earlier. Yeah. Festus and I, several years ago, when he was a much younger man, did this piece about what was this spirituality and politics in Ghana. Politics, yeah. And the levels of occultic practices that drive our politics. And we are beginning to see the conflation of Islam, traditional religion, is it
Christianity,
and Christianity beginning to play a very big role here. Sometimes one wonders, to what extent do they really believe in the things that they are doing? Because their utterances don't help. When you tell me, as for me, I'm not going to hand over to him because he lost to me. And somebody says, we have pastors and malams, so by all means we are going to win. We will not hand over to the opposition. And then somebody says, well, I don't trust these people, so even if we don't win, we will not go to court. Now, the sum total of these bellicose statements is a signal to their followership to do what they want to do. Now, Festus also and I, several years ago, with our colleagues, did some work. There is a positive, direct correlation between threatening people, the use of abusive language, and getting political appointment when your party loses power. So, violence has become
so you mean to say we're rewarding those who are...
Yeah, violence is a currency. Yeah. Right. Violence is a currency. Otherwise, why do you say, look, we are all going for an exam, but to be sure that there's credibility, let's ensure that, look, the thing is clear. And then somebody says, if you do that and there's transparency, I'll demonstrate. Okay, and we should be careful because George spoke about the Vigilante Act, which he hasn't spoken very much about. But when you travel around this country, vigilantism as a tool for getting access to politicians and also for getting money is only lying low. Okay? But not only that,
Yeah.
when institutions fail to do what they need to do, you see, when as members of parliament, you seek to pass a law that says we have special dispensation to flout the traffic regulations because it's an election time. Okay? Now, that poses an ethical problem. Because when are you going to say you want to increase your salary by 2,000%? But the quality of our politics is also directly related to this huge overturn at every electoral cycle. So right now, just a little bit over 50% of the sitting parliamentarians are going for re-election. What it means is that come January 7th, we are going to have very few experienced MPs. Now, talking about January 7th brings two things that bothers me. One relates to the number of deaths, people who were brutalized under election 2020.
Yes.
The second is the sacrilegious invasion of parliament that was on the verge of undermining our democracy, that we've all swept under the carpet and thought, oh, we can go on. So my three colleagues here, mellifluous Kofi Annan type language, full of hope and optimism, are dealing with a group of people who will meet them, speak nicely, and then say, look, hey, we are not going to sign any peace pact.
And that question stares George Amo in the face. And I'll be coming to you, George, on that to find out what you're doing, try and bring all of the political parties together. For those of you who are listening to us on radio, this is Joy 99.7 FM. We are on the Joy News channel as well, and this is a Joy News national dialogue on the International Peace Day. And you can be a part of this good cause. Just join us with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH. Ask all of your questions. We'll be getting to those questions and comments shortly, so you can also be a part of this national dialogue. We're identifying and learning so much tonight, and that's why I want us to get back to the point about what's happening in the sub-region before we get to the issue about the Peace Pact. Dr. Obin, you were talking about the threats, but then I also want us to look at what happens elsewhere, not far away, but even our neighboring countries. Of course, when the issue about Guinea came up, there was this unique, trend of seeing citizens jubilate simply because there was a military takeover. That has never happened before. I mean, it's time to be educated. And then you find the Afrobarometer report supporting that even in countries, relatively stable democracies such as Ghana, citizens don't really mind, about 50% don't really mind if you have the military takeover. That's a threat, a direct threat to our violent extremism. I mean, the issue about keeping our peace and the context, the conversation around violent extremism. So let's look at it then. Let's talk about sub-regional trends, how we can learn from them, and how we can fix the problem even before it emerges in our country.
Yes. So about the point about people jubilating when there's a military coup and all that, when you go deep into it, you realize that people are not jubilating because the military has taken over. Because military governance, we have a history of military governance in this country. People are jubilating because a bad government has been overthrown. And so the jubilation very often is not about the fact that the military has taken over, but because there has been an end to a bad governance that was unable to meet the expectations, of the people. But talking about the trends, I think that from 2023 up to now, we've had some elections within the sub-region in Nigeria, in Liberia, and also in Senegal. I mean, in Nigeria, we all thought that the country was going to be in turmoil after the elections. But despite, the challenges, there was some transition to a new government. The same for Senegal. I mean, the pre-election period and the issue about President Macky Sall, I mean, standing for a third term and the violence and the clashes that ensued. And then also in Liberia, we saw how President Oponria and Yusuf Boakai, I mean, the contest and how, I mean, it also led to a peaceful, I mean, transfer. I mean, from all these, one of the things that I think we can pick from, or the lessons that we can pick from, is when it comes to post-election reconciliation, which we don't do much in this country. You know, if you look at Liberia and also Senegal, the incumbents who were in power conceded defeat even before the Electoral Commission declared the results. And
so you don't need anyone forcing you to say, accept the outcome.
Yes, I'm not too sure whether in this country, whether after the 2020 elections, we've had the opposition congratulating the president. I'm not too sure. And when you have that state, it continues to create tensions and divisions within the system. When the leader comes out to say that, yes, I've contested a free, fair, transparent election and I've lost and I concede, it also helps the followers to follow suit. But when we have such situations, it continues to create tension. So one of the lessons that I want us to pick is that after the election, anyone who loses should be bold enough to call the winning candidate to concede. And that helps in post-election reconciliation. The second thing is also the trust in the electoral bodies. In Liberia, also in Senegal, we had incumbent government losing power. And it was the same electoral management bodies that conducted the elections. In our case, when you are in power, you mistrust the electoral body. When you go in opposition, when you are in power, you support the electoral body. When you go in opposition, you mistrust the electoral body. I think we should be able to build consensus around issues of common concerns, especially with the voter register and what the Peace Council has already started doing.
But this is what I need to say, that even the post-election reconciliation cannot happen if you don't have the pre-election factors addressed. And that's why I want to bring in George to just address that for us, the issue about the Peace Pact. And Kathleen, just to point out that I've not forgotten about the disinformation, misinformation. we will get to that, so you can speak a bit more about what you intend to do and how we can tackle that. So, but George, let's get that out of the way. The point about pre-election commitments, having all the political parties sit around the table to commit to peace. Are we getting that?
Yeah, Blessed, you know, the theme for this year's celebration of the International Day of Peace is cultivating the culture of peace. I think peace pacts are part of the culture that we want to, strengthen in our democracy. In 2012, we started this process. 2016, we did it. 2020, we did it. And I believe that it really helped. Nigeria picked from us after the 2012 elections. So I think it's good. It is not enforceable at court, but however, it is very persuasive, a sign of commitment to the peace that we all want of our country. So we would continue to embark upon getting all the political actors, the presidential candidates. In fact, this year, we've extended it to the parliamentary candidates. So next month, we are going to go out to about 26 constituencies to get the parliamentary candidates to dialogue and thereafter commit to the peace of the constituency and the country.
Okay, so these are hotspots, I believe.
Yes, these are hotspots.
Okay.
We have about 30 that we have identified, and we want to, we have resources to go to about 26 of them with the support of FCDO. So we are going to do that. The national one, we haven't stopped at all. The NDC has given us a position, conditions that they think would have to be addressed before they sign. The NPP has indicated their intention to sign. The other political parties, I'm aware, have also indicated same. So we haven't stopped working towards getting the demands of the NDC met since they last told us the conditions. Some of them, I think, are already being worked on. For example, the one regarding the deaths, the unfortunate deaths that occurred during the last elections. The court, not too long after the demands were made public, I think made a decision that at least did something towards achieving that goal. We've also heard the president coming out to publicly say that he is going to hand over. I think these are positive signs towards addressing the issue that they've raised. We believe that we are going to get there. Getting some actors to also sign the Peace Pact was one of the conditions that they gave. Some of them cannot be done because of legal limitation. But others that, is permissible within our administrative and legal framework, we don't see why we cannot do. So we will continue to engage. Indeed, we are engaging with them, and we believe that in the next few weeks, we should be able to find a solution so that we get this country together in putting our hands onto one common paper that we commit to the peace of this country. The effect is that the followers of these political parties are also going to pick the signals, that if our leaders are committed to peace, why not? So I think it is important, and I want to urge the National Democratic Congress. We are still talking to you. Let us keep our doors open from both ends and continue to work out. We may not be able to have probably all the demands met. In mediation, it doesn't work that way. We all shift positions from here and there. Normally, there is a need that we have to seek to address. So we are hopeful that we will get there. We mean very well, and we don't claim to be perfect.
Do you feel there's a role that the governing side could play, at least, just to, because these political parties we know talk behind the scenes. Some of them are very good friends. Have you?
Best I can tell you.
Have you tried reaching out to the governing side to talk to the NDC side as well?
It's not everything that I can disclose here, but I can assure you we are doing exactly what you've just said. We know very well that there are influences within both parties who are able to bring cross, influence. It's done, and we are doing that. And within the parties, there are key brokers who are able to influence, behavior and actions. And we are not leaving any stone unturned. We believe that Ghana will win if we all, once again, sign on to commit to peace before and after the elections.
And we need to point out that that's what we support here at your election headquarters. This is the Joy News channel and Joy 99.7 FM. For those of you who are listening to us on radio, we're doing the national dialogue on the International Peace Day. Let's get to the messages, which we'll be bringing up shortly. But I also need to tell you about those helping us to do the conversation. Professor Kwesi Enin, we have Dr. Festus Obin, Kathleen, the chairperson of the NCCE, and also George Amo, Executive Secretary of the National Peace Council, my panel for tonight, helping us to do this national dialogue, which is brought to you by Joy News in partnership with the Catholic Relief Services, with funding from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands. And of course, that's why we're able to bring you this conversation. So you also do your part by joining us with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH, which I will be getting to shortly. We'll be right back after this break. And when we return, we'll get into your messages. Please stay. Thank you for spending some time with us on the International Day for Peace, where we're bringing you the JoyNews National Dialogue in partnership with the Catholic Relief Services with funding from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where we're bringing you this conversation on peace before, during and after the 2024 general elections. My guest joining us and helping us with the discussion, Dr. Festus Obin, is Research Coordinator for the West African Network for Peace Building. We also have Kathleen Adi, Chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education. George Amo is the Executive Secretary for the National Peace Council, and Professor Kwesi Ening is a security consultant. Thank you all for spending your weekend with us, but we're still talking about peace, and a lot of messages have been coming through. We'll get to them shortly, but you can also be a part of the conversation. Join us with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH, that's the hashtag, and then we'll be, of course, reading your message out to the rest of the world. And from wherever you're joining us, you can just keep sending the messages through. We've been identifying some of the threats to our democratic stability. We've spoken about, the political class. We've spoken about how the citizens can also participate in the exercise. But let's deal with a crucial aspect, the medium through which you're sending us all of your messages, which is social media, because that's becoming a platform for misinformation and disinformation. So we'll read your messages, but we need to deal with the threats that we equally face on that platform. So let me start off with you, Kathleen, because you spoke about it earlier, and that's why I'm giving you the trouble of having to talk about disinformation and misinformation. But before
there's something I'd like to
point out.
The fact that, as citizens, we have to understand that we all have agency. We have agency. We have the power to change the political culture, depending on how we respond to things, the behaviors we reward and the behaviors we punish. And I think that sometimes we lose sight of that. We throw our arms in despair and say, nothing can go right. No, it's not true. We are practicing a multi-party democracy. It's a very well-defined set of rules of engagement that we have. No political leader dropped from the sky. We elected them. They came from amongst us. They are our relatives. They are our church colleagues. They are our professional associates.
And friends too.
And they are our friends, exactly. So we have several levels of influence that we can use to ensure that we begin to change that. Because for me, it really boils down to political culture. All the things that we have a problem with today has become part of the culture, and that's where the difficulty is. So let's remember that as citizens, we have agency, and that the power that politicians wield is the power that we have ceded based on the democratic arrangement, right? The social contract. And so we shouldn't forget our power and what we are able to do when we come together and decide that we will not accept this type of behavior. We will punish this type of language. We will not elect people who do this and that. It will change, because at the end of the day, politicians are rational human beings. They are not the demons that people paint them out. No, they are rational human beings who want your vote and will demonstrate the behavior that will let them get the vote. So let's make our vote, that important, and give it away in such a way that they begin to recognize, right, that this sort of behavior will cost me. The same way we've made them recognize that money can make a difference, and now it's all a money game. Same way we can make them recognize that certain type of behavior, a certain type of language is what will determine the outcome, whether I get to keep my seat or win a seat or not. So that said, I just think it's important to say that, because in all the talk, it's almost as if politicians have all the power and citizens have none. It's not true. Citizens really do have all the power if we learn to mobilize and deploy it effectively. Now, on the misinformation and disinformation, from the side of NCC, what we are focusing on is to create the awareness amongst people and to also work so that people change their behavior, how they interface with information that falls on their lap. If we all take the position, again, using the agency that we have, the power that we have, take the position that when I see these things, I will not forward it. I will not forward information that is
false?
Maybe you may not know, but it is like something that is tarnishing the reputation of another person in a way that you can tell that maybe there's something wrong with this picture. Don't automatically for a pause. Ask yourself, is this the way to go? Is this a good thing? Am I rewarding the right kind of behavior if I share this information? Also, you have to understand that the dangerous bits of misinformation, disinformation, go out to incite people to behave in ways that then represent a threat to the stability of our country. So on that as well, we should ask ourselves, if I'm to forward this information or to share this information, what does it mean for the next person, for the person, the target who is meant to trigger? What will be the implications if that person receives this information and gets an emotional trigger to go out there to do something bad? So on misinformation and disinformation, it will be very difficult to say, check everything you see. It's not a realistic way of going about things. And how many people have the means to check? How many people have the time to check? But I think check yourself is easy, is the easier way to go about it. We all check ourselves. We stop doing the automatic forwards and automatic shares. And we take a position that when we see certain types of information, we will not distribute it. We will not be part of the problem. We will be a part of the solution.
I want us to look at, citizens using the internet and also the social media platforms. Professor Enin, you were talking about the research that you did some time back with Dr. Albin, the fact that some of the political parties appear to be rewarding hate speech and inflammatory language. I believe that that's been transposed onto social media, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. But I think Catherine and George have made two good points that I want to tag on to very quickly before I come to. Catherine talks about good citizenship. That is going to be a generational project. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that I want to suggest here is that for those of us, Festus is too young, but we remember this book, Courtesy for Boys and Girls. Oh, yes. We need to bring it back.
We're actually working on it.
Excellent.
Yes, we are reviving it.
The sheer crudity amongst those who govern us, the sheer indiscipline, the untamed behavior, and the utterances. George says the theme for this year is cultivating a culture of peace. That fits nicely into the AU's Agenda 2063, particularly points 3 and 4, that talks about good governance, peace, and security. And Festus has also told us about the spectacular electoral successes in Senegal.
Okay, and Professor Nim, we'll get to you shortly. I just want to get to social media and get some of the reactions coming through while we continue with the conversation. But for those of you who are watching us on television, this is the Joy News channel. And on radio, it is Joy 99.7 FM. And this is the International Day for Peace. We're doing the Joy News National Dialogue in partnership with the Catholic Relief Services with funding from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The reason for which we are able to bring you this conversation that we're having on television. Most of you have been writing to us on social media. I just want to read a couple of them. Paul Saul says, advocate for free and fair elections and desist and also increase the message of preaching peace. Of course, he continues to talk about the need to ensure peace before, during, and after the elections. There's also one coming through from Lami Zanza. He says that tell the Electoral Commission to do the right thing, and we want the audit of the register, which will be peace in this case. Of course, I believe he then supports the NDC's argument on the electoral roll. Many of you are also doing your campaigning at this time, but we want to choose peace first before we get into all of the politicking. There's a hashtag here, choose peace GH from Plants Victor Paul, who's also watching us live on Facebook. Then we have one of the messages coming through from Ayebo Solomon. He says that peace is as a result of right obedience to the laws and not a demand. Professor, do you believe in that? He says it's more about doing the right thing and we shouldn't be demanding peace. So once you do the right thing, he feels it's guaranteed that, yes, you would have peace in the country.
Well, it's not automatic. I mean, peace, getting to peace is a deliberate, specific, long-term set of interventions. You know, and I think this ties in to the conversations around the Peace Pact. Getting to peace is like getting to yes. How do we give and take in a manner that everyone still feels has become a winner? And that ties in to your question about hate speech and rewards and the social media. I think Catherine has captured it very, very, very well, but I want to push it a step further. When we talk disinformation and misinformation, they overlap and intertwine. That sometimes becomes very difficult to disaggregate. But it comes in different forms. Deliberate, unproven assertions that are said very often over time. And then it is used as satire, you know, to undermine, to tease, to make you lose your self-confidence. And deliberate, false, fabricated scams and imposted news. Fourth is deliberate mislabeling, which we see all the politicians doing. And then mishandling of facts. So you say only 90%, but then you leave the core 10%. And then sometimes it's either overstated or understated. We have done this, but you know very well that you haven't done so. And then it is also conflated. But I want to focus a little bit, pushing it once more, about the gendered dimensions of misinformation and disinformation. That is presented as satire and also as fun. So there are quite a number of, you know, politicians who use this very misogynistic language. Look at this, look at that. Correct. The second, apart from the misogyny, is about women's status. The third is almost glorifying gender violence. The fourth is about how they dress. And the fifth is as to whether they are married or not. Chief, okay, and I'm very concerned about the gender dimensions of misinformation and disinformation, and the misuse of misogyny, precisely because when you come from a strong family of successful women, some of whom are physically challenged but have managed to be successful, then you get very sensitive about people who are misusing this. But finally, is that irrespective of how hate speech is used through social media, we need to understand that our politicians speak with four tongues. You know, a snake has two, they have four. One is the way they speak when they are talking to our partners. Mellifluous, sweet, using all the buzzwords. The second is when they are talking on the campaign platforms. There may be occasional slippages here and there. And then the third is when they meet in public, small groups, but accessible. The fourth, their real messages, is when the door is closed and they speak. And I think Festus can tell you that we have this list of the obnoxious language used to ginger the grassroots. So getting to yes, the reluctance to do peace pact is a reflection of the lack of integrity in terms of the public discourses. For that, I think Catherine has a long-term job to do. Making us good citizens.
Okay, but that's why I also want to hear from Dr. Obeng. You know, the point about helping the grassroots to know, to decipher. I mean, let me pick this, let me live this out. You know, just sift and sort through whatever it is that the political class is telling you. How do we do that, coupled with, you know, helping the lay person to know this is disinformation, this is misinformation, and this is how it looks like? Because there will be a challenge for someone in a local community somewhere who doesn't have the privilege to, you know, just look through the internet and spot these trends that we're talking about. So how do you also help, you know, at OneUp, since you're not just in charge of research, but also capacity building, how do you work, you know, towards building that partnership with local communities to also identify these threats?
Yes. I think that what we do is not so different from what the NCC does. So for us, one of the ways we do this is through digital literacy. Creating the awareness among the population, especially those at the local level, to be able to decipher between issues that are specifically created to misinform them, just to let them appreciate also the dangers of also spreading this kind of information. And apart from the grassroots, we also engage the media. Because some of these disinformation, malinformation also stem from, I mean, the media, both the traditional and also social media as well. And so trying to also build the capacity of the media platforms and media houses to also be able to be conscious about these issues and the potential to also create violence and also unrest within the grassroots. Because you see, there are people who are not privy to a lot of the discussions that we have in the capital cities. Yeah. And like you rightly pointed out, if you go to the border areas, you know, and you go to certain parts of the country, they are not privileged to have a lot of the information that we have in the urban areas. And so sometimes it's very easy for them to receive some of those misinformation, which sometimes also inform the kind of actions they take, especially when it's something that is politically, I mean, sensitive. Yeah, so we try to create the awareness, promote the digital literacy, and also for the media, especially when it comes to issues around violence, also trying to emphasize the issue of conflict-sensitive reporting to ensure that we don't deal with this issue.
I see. Let's head right on to social media, since we are talking about social media, and many of you have been sending your messages. There's this one with a hashtag. It's from Conlan Yakinam. Of course, she's writing with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH. And we have Sami Ajay also pointing out that someone rightly said that, quote, if you think peace is expensive, try ignorance. And it ends with the hashtag ChoosePeaceGH. Sami Ajay, thank you for sending us your message. Komla Fiadunu is also applauding the Catholic Relief Services for bringing us this national dialogue on the Day for International Peace. And there's also another message coming through from Joshua Abem saying, insightful discussion. And indeed, I must say that this has been a very insightful discussion that we've had on the JoyNews National Dialogue in partnership with the Catholic Relief Services on the International Day for Peace. And we're grateful that many of you are joining your election headquarters, Joy 99.7 FM and JoyNews in choosing peace. What I need to do is to now get a message of peace from my panel tonight, sending that special message to Ghanaians, thousands of them and scores of them who are watching us tonight, your special message to them and what you would want them to know as we head into the 2024 general elections. And we want to have peace beyond the election as well. So I'll start off with you, Dr. Obeng, a special message to Ghanaians who are watching us now, 30 seconds each.
Yes. So for me, I think that the quote I always use is that it's easy to break, but rebuilding is always difficult. So we need to cherish the peace that we have. Achieving peace is a collective responsibility. So we as citizens, politicians, state institutions, we need to play our roles responsibly to ensure that the relative peace that we have is safeguarded and is also consolidated after the elections. And we can't afford to fail. because there are so many, issues happening around us that provide a very good opportunity for us to ensure that our peace is consolidated.
Right. Let me go to Prof before I come to Kathleen.
Well, I think for me, Festus has said it all. But as a citizen who has also been persecuted for doing my citizen's work, and Festus knows this. And I think sometimes when you talk about this, people take it for granted. That some of us have been persecuted for speaking up. I'm always guided and strengthened, and I think every single citizen must be, by the soaring lyrics of our national anthem. Bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of right. Cherishing fearless honesty with all our will and might. Steadfast to build together a nation strong in unity. 90% of Ghanaians cannot even sing the first stanza. And were this to be the criteria for parliamentarians to be sworn in, probably 95 will fail. So Catherine, please, as part of your civic for education, let the singing of the national anthem become part of our motto. So that kids who want to follow those who have been battered and suffered can take solace from the words of this anthem.
Kathleen?
Thank you very much. That is certainly on the agenda. And again, let's all come together on this. I mean, there are places where they play the national anthem before sports games. And it creates, an emotional response that helps to deepen patriotism among citizens. These are things that are intangibles, but that are important if you are trying to build good citizenship. So I totally agree with you on that, and we are definitely on it. On the issue of peace, first, again, I would like to go back to individual agency and say that every Ghanaian life is too precious. Every drop of Ghanaian blood is too precious. Let's not waste it this year. It's not worth it. If you lose a limb in pursuit of fighting for the people that you believe in or the political ideology, that limb is gone. Life goes on. Those who did not lose their limbs will go on. If you lose, yes, they'll be walking on two legs and you'll be walking on a leg and a half. So please, let's this time round take all of these things into consideration and decide that we will vote on different things. If we send out the signal clearly that we are not shedding blood for politics or politicians, and we are not laying down our life for politics or politicians, and we want you to come strong and tell us something better and convince us, the culture will shift. George,
your work continues from tonight, right?
Thank you very much. I think I can make...
Yes, definitely.
So our politicians, we speak to you. Ghanaian women are calling on you. Our school children are calling on you. The drivers are calling on you. The artisans are calling on you. Act responsibly as we approach the 2024 elections. They want to see a Ghana that is at peace with itself after December. We cannot fail. Let us do all that we can. Shelve our individual demands for the national good. And God will bless this country.
Indeed. And as we say, God bless our homeland, Ghana. It's been a pleasure doing this with all of you, my panel tonight, and millions of you watching us on social media and at home, on your television, and listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM and on your election headquarters on the Joy News channel. This has been the Joy News National Dialogue with me, Blessed Sugai. We're doing this in partnership with the Catholic Relief Services with funding from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it's been as part of the Povetsa 2 project. And as we wrap up, we'll leave you with this special message from the Catholic Relief Services. We'll see you again, and God bless Ghana once more.
The Catholic Relief Services has been implementing the Prevention of Violent Extremism through Social Accountability Project, Povetsa. With funding from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Catholic Relief Services Povetsa project has been operating in partnership with the National Peace Council to implement the initiative, which aims at enhancing trust between civilians and security services to prevent violent extremism in Ghana.
So I think the people are now understand what they should have peace and help the community. I thank the CRS because they have done a very nice job for the Adaboya community. Because when there is peace, you can do anything in the community.
With less than 100 days to Ghana's presidential and parliamentary elections, the project is working with national peace actors to ensure that Ghana retains its glory as the beacon of democracy in Africa.